All right, we are live now. What I was saying is I noticed right as I was turning in my paper that the paper was not supposed to be the same as a regular paper. There was specific questions to answer.
Yeah,
Uh, I
Yeah,
was just curious if anybody else noticed that before they.
yeah, I
yeah.
did.
I did it the way
Yep.
that with the questions.
Yeah, I didn't see it in time. So,
And then,
but,
Well, did you just answer those questions and submitted the paper?
yeah,
well,
I did.
I just submitted the regular paper, and I saw that right as I was turning it in. I'm like, well, there's not time to rewrite it or answer those questions, so it's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, just to give a little synopsis of the case, basically you have really a long-standing negotiations have been taking place between the National Hockey League and the players. Initially the players were getting somewhat run around the bush and not getting taken care of in compensation and other things. They got themselves into a union and put that together, and that started the negotiations between the union and the league. There was sometimes the league would win, sometimes the union would win, and now we're in a situation where neither one seemed to be wanting to give in their position, and they're uh, basically been in a standstill, a lockout. So nobody's playing, nobody's making any money, and everything's basically just sitting there. That's kind of where things are at. Um, with that, the first real question that we're supposed to discuss is what is the root cause of the problems identified in the case?
I think it's the distrust between the two sides. I mean, the union doesn't trust the financials of the league, and I think that's really where a lot of these problems are stemming from. And I mean, they want kind of the free trade of the owners giving high amounts for players and that kind of stuff. And the league is saying, well, it's bankrupting us, right? It's causing us to lose millions in losses, and the players don't believe that based on the revenues that they see at the games and stuff. So I think that's where it comes from.
So, yeah, I think it's mistrust and communication. They're all, I want this and I want that, and they're not communicating well and even trying to come to an agreement. Nobody wants to give up anything.
Yeah, I agree with the communication part. You know, it's hard when you have, opposing sides, and instead of just figuring out what they do to satisfy both sides, they just bicker. They argue back and forth. And then one group would give a suggestion, and the other one says no, and then the other side will give a suggestion, and they will say no. So now it's it goes nowhere. Like Parley was saying. So yeah, I definitely agree with the community.
I think their wants were so different. I mean, they weren't lined up. In the case it asked about, or the questions asked about the ZOPA, and literally that was just so off. Like they were each over here, and they should have been overlapping a little bit, and they weren't at all. So
They were willing to compromise.
yeah.
Didn't the Zopa have something to do with finding a compromise or something like that?
Yeah, it's the space between which they can negotiate. This group saying these are our parameters, and this group saying this is ours, and seeing what space that overlaps, and that in between spaces, the negotiating ZOPA.
Well, they definitely wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm a bit unenergetic, guys. I have food poisoning and not feeling good.
It's all right.
Well, one of the things that we're kind of going back to the original there, what are some of the underlying issues? I don't know if I jumped back there, but I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed like they were not wanting, it was like not even were negotiations. It was like, I don't want to make an agreement with you because, you know, the union would come with a concession and say, hey, this is this, we're conceding this, we like, you know, this. And then they would say, oh, no, we're not going to agree with that. We want this. And like they kept, it's like they kept changing what they wanted. Maybe that was just the impression that I got, but it was like everything kept changing. There was no like, this is what I want, this is what you want, and then there's like common ground and you can like overlap and find a common ground. It was like, if I move over here, they move here. If they move here, I'm going to move over here. It was just like, I don't understand how you cannot come to an agreement when they keep, I could see how you can't come to an agreement if you keep changing what your objective is. And that's kind of what I felt like when I was reading it, but maybe I'm mistaken.
And I think a lot of it had to do with the trust. They weren't trusting each other.
Definitely. It seemed to me, you know, as far as the trust deal, the league could have gone to a little, I mean, it wouldn't have taken much to say, look, we don't have anything to hide. Come look at the books and you'll see. At that point, then you can make your, you know, we can make a decision based off the actual limitations of revenue as opposed to, well, I want a bigger salary, which I don't know, I find humorous anyway. I can't live on 10 million a year. No.
I thought it was interesting. At times in the case when like the players said that they were willing to work under a cap, and some of the players were, and I just felt like the league, meaning the negotiators of the league, and I totally am spacing their names now. Goodwin, was it, or Good something like that?
Good
I
now.
feel like they had their own kind of agenda, and even though the players would have been willing to do the salary cap, the union wasn't, and so the union wasn't always quite understanding the concessions that the players were willing to make, and even though I mean, the union has, I think, the best interests in mind. But I saw that.
Yeah, that's precisely what I was getting at. It's like they didn't want a resolution. You know, the players like, oh yeah, we're good. We'll take the cap, and the union people immediately pulled them in, had a little pep rally or whatever you want to call it. And when the players came back out, they're like, nope, I won't work under a cap. It's like, I don't know. I found they're like, sometimes the union's like self-licking ice cream cones. You know, they want things the way they want it, and we're going to get you all this cool stuff. And they basically justify their existence by telling you that they're going to get something, and it just kind of keeps going in a circle. But anyway, I definitely saw that as well. So along those lines, what would you describe the culture of the NHL? With its strengths and weaknesses of the culture?
I think one of the strengths is that they wanted to control not control it, but they wanted to manage the budgeting of the money a little bit more, because you know there's a lot of players out there that is getting paid millions of dollars, but yet they're not playing the game effectively, if that's even the correct term for it. And so they just wanted to reduce that, you know. I mean, it doesn't cause them the players any sort of, you know, monetary deficit, if that's even the correct term for it. But like they just wanted to manage the money side of things. You know, I think that's the biggest strength, is that they're worried that they're gonna, you know, be bankrupt, and so they wanted to, you know, reduce that by having the cap, you know. But obviously the union didn't agree with that, and so now we're in this predicament.
I thought. Oh, sorry.
And well, go ahead. I'm finished.
I thought
Finish with the
that
strength.
one of the weaknesses within the culture is that, I mean, the problem was that the owners were offering too much money per players, right? And that's what the NHL was citing as the need for the cap. But I was like, the whole case, I was like, so why doesn't the NHL talk to the owners about financial responsibility, right? Why are they offering more than their team can get in revenues and payouts? I mean, what? And so I thought that was a weakness of the culture, that the owners kind of seem to be able to just go ahead and do whatever they want. There weren't any real repercussions for those kind of attitudes, and instead they were trying to not really take it out on the players, but you know, it kind of was going from the other end. I felt like they were trying to do it from the players' side when it maybe should have been coming from the owner's side. And other than that, I think strengths have been that in the past they have come together and the union has grown. They have had good representation, and I mean, their whole path to even getting a union was pretty crazy and difficult. I mean, it wasn't an easy process. It took a long time. So I feel like there's just been a lot of friction between the two sides the entire time that it's been that, what do you call it? I'm missing words. The entire time that it's been alive, I guess, right? The NHL has been there.
But you know what it's interesting is that before they've been able to come to an agreement, and it's not until now that they are having these issues. Maybe the problem is Gary and Bob, the two negotiators.
Yeah, it was odd that they were kind of the only ones doing all that. They were the only ones negotiating. There really weren't a whole lot of people involved in the entire process. So.
It definitely felt like the two were, they both had their ego on their, you know, they were definitely wearing it around, and you know, I'm a good negotiator, and I'm going to get this for my guys, so to speak. And I don't think they really had the whole organization in best interest in mind. That's the thing that I think was missing from the, you know, like, you know, players can't get paid if the league doesn't make money and have games, and the league can't make money if the players don't play. And they're not really, like, I mean, the league was basically seeing it their side, and the players were seeing it their side, and there was kind of not any overlap of responsibility for the other side of the playing field there. And really, the fact is they're one and the same when it comes down in the wash. I also think one of the strengths was the players. I mean, I guess it could go either way, a strength or weakness, but I think the players may have felt more inclined to have things change earlier in the union in time. But there was maybe just one comment in there that said the players just really wanted to play. Like they weren't,
They didn't care about the money.
yeah, I think they didn't care about the money as much as they cared if they had big numbers or whatever for their players. When in actuality, as far as revenue to salaries, they were already higher than any other organization, sports league in the country.
Yeah,
But
that's crazy.
Yeah, but it seems like the league was making a lot of money, and the players, like you said, they were good either way, but they were getting injured and all kinds of stuff, and they weren't. The owners weren't even offering, a good pay until Good Now or whatever. Until he came on board or the new union started looking after the players, but before that, it was like the owners were taking all the money, most of the money.
yeah,
There was never a balance.
yeah. So in your opinion, collectively or individually, what is the best way to I'm gonna BATNA, the best alternate, right?
To negotiate agreements.
Yeah, there we go.
So I wrote down. Sorry, go ahead, Kent.
So it's just a simple point. Based on the past few case studies, there were two sides, and they disagreed with each other. And instead of coming together to have a meeting on the other side, and it does cause friction and it doesn't accomplish anything. So, like, if they would just sit down, like as a collective, like as a whole, like two sides sit down in a room and they just talk about it. There's no point in just backbiting and they're separate and having separate meetings, and then one side wants this, side wants that, and when they tell the other side what they want, both the sides don't agree with the other one. You know what I'm saying? So, like, grow some courage together and cash out, and come to some sort of agreement, like on the Zopa thing. They could literally apply the Zopa thing by just coming together like person, instead of doing the whole this side is over here, that side is over here thing, and then it doesn't work. We see it in this case.
What do you think, Aaron?
So I agree with Kent. But I kind of think that they're in a place where they're never really going to make a negotiation because of the egos that them had. So what I was kind of thinking was along the lines that needs to tell the teams that they players as they do, because it's hockey. So I don't really know how many they need on a team, but I do know that they're playing 6 at any given time, and they've got 22 to 23 players on the team. And the only thing that I know about professional league is I had a that was a third string wide receiver for the San Diego Chargers. So he was playing, he only got in maybe 2 games in 4 years because it was third string, sat bench most of the time, but he made $400,000 a year there. So I'm thinking, even if that are the excess are making half as much as my coach did, team to say you need to reduce from 22. We've got enough for 3 sets, essentially. Save the league over $24 million a year. That's their best solution right now, is instead of trying to argue about what the salary caps are, the players' side and cut down on the excess salaries.
So I think, what side are we, either side we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Bat now?
Either side.
So I felt like, I felt like both sides kind of moved around as negotiations moved around, but the NHL's BATNA originally was to just have a salary cap and that salaries be linked to the revenue. That's what I put anyway. And in the end, they changed it to just the salary cap, right? That was their final offer for the $42.5 million. And I mean, they had a lot of other stuff that they were asking originally. I think there were like 15 items that they inserted at one point in the negotiations that they wanted. But yeah, the BATNA was that they wanted the salary cap and the revenue. And for the union, I think it was to accept what I wrote here, accept a deal that included the salary rollback and no salary cap or revenue salary link, because they were really suspicious of the revenues, right? So, I mean, their BATNA was like absolutely no salary cap, but at the end they were saying, okay, maybe, but for, what was it, like 40 something thousand million? It was more than what the NHL had said. So, I mean, their original negotiations were so much more tight, but that was the best alternative they had to what they thought was a good negotiation at the time, I think.
So I got a question off topic. Why are teachers getting paid less than?
I think you froze, Kent.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear you.
What? Oh,
I think what you were asking is why are teachers getting paid less than pro hockey players or pro whatever?
Yeah.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
The answer to that question is a teacher affects 33 kids in amazing ways, and a football player or a hockey player creates enjoyment for several million, and if they pay $1 or $2, that's a lot of money when 34 parents can't contribute, I don't know what that would work out to, but like $50,000 a piece to get them to the same salary.
Yeah, it comes down to how much we're willing to pay in taxes for it, honestly, and the amount per day that each brings in.
If you were to take every teacher in the country and pay them even $1 million a year, it would be a huge sell. Like, we'd be paying a lot in taxes. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, that's fine.
It's the pool of available people to pay into each teacher versus the pool of people that are available to pay into an individual person in the sports arena. That are getting benefit from it. Anyway. All right. So we talked about their BATNA. Is it possible? Another question is it possible to change another person's ZOPA? Why or why not?
Well, I think so. I mean, that happened in the case, right? Where, I mean, they were so far apart on their parameters for negotiation. By the end of it, the union was saying, okay, maybe we'll consider a cap. And so they were coming a little bit closer, but it still wasn't really overlapping because the numbers weren't they weren't thinking alike on the numbers. So I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, they were kind of all over the place on where they would negotiate and what they would negotiate with. So, so yeah, I think so.
I agree. I think it is possible, but both sides need to be willing to communicate and give up something. Otherwise, it'll be kind of hard, like it's happening in this case.
Yeah, definitely have to be humble and you have to be open. I mean, you know, you think about like your own personal relationships with other people, like even a spouse, like, hey, this is what I want to do, that's what they want to do. And like if you're unwilling to bend, that's why things break occasionally. But if there's, you know, through discussion or whatever, like seeing things from the other point of view, a lot of times that ZOPA changes, and you know, you see things from a different perspective, and it's okay. And so I definitely think it's possible for things to change, but that also requires that flexibility and that humility and some ability to see things from a different perspective. I also think it takes some creative thinking, because you know, a lot of times we go into a situation where like this is what needs to happen, and we feel pretty adamant about that, but at the same time we haven't thought of every possible solution, and there may be something that if we box ourselves into that one little method or one little thought process, that we eliminate thinking of something else that would have worked much better. So
I agree with that. One of my other classes has required has required us to do some negotiation cases throughout the semester. And so like my group in that class has divided into teams, and each team is given different information about the case and like background, like secret stuff. And and then from there we have to negotiate terms and agreements for the case. And so yeah, I agree with what you said. It's like if you just go into it with such a hard line of negotiations or ZOPA or whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's really hard to meet that, and the open-mindedness is really what can get you places and get you sometimes better deals than maybe you thought you could get. And so yeah, very true.
okay. In this particular case, what are the barriers and how would you seek to remove them specifically? I think the biggest one is probably the hurdle that needs to be crossed is the fact that the financials need to be more open. I think that would change the whole dynamic of the negotiations.
Yeah, I think they also made the right move later on in later on in the case when they lifted the gag order on the owners to the players, and just so that the owners and players could have that open communication. I think that was a good thing in relation to the negotiations. They should have done it sooner. But yeah, the financials and just really open communications, maybe bringing in more people on the negotiations instead of just Bob and Goodnow, I think. I don't know his name.
It's goody now.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I had down for the barriers.
Anyone else?
Well, I think coming up with goals, I mean, because they're not, like we said, they're just throwing what they want, what each side wants, but there are no goals set that they should be working towards other than this is what I want. And if I don't get it, we're not going to come to an agreement. So they should sit down and, I mean, bringing other people would be a huge help, I think. And then putting everything in writing what they want and just work towards them.
Okay. What would you do if you were the National Hockey League Players Association? So from the players' point of view, what would you do to resolve the situation?
Well, it seems like they're not asking for a lot, but the guy, it's really pushing them to ask for them. So maybe they should be present. If I was one of the players, I think I would want to be in those meetings and kind of give my 2 cents of what I want or what I would want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Be more active, I think, in the meetings.
I think it'd make a big difference if you had all the players come out and say, hey, this is exactly what we want or what we're willing to take, not with the influence of the union leadership, and then go from there. But
Yeah, that's more effective.
how about the opposite from the NHL? Oh, what could they do to resolve it?
They should put themselves in the players' shoes. Hey, if they were the players, what would they want? And I mean, because it seems like the owners, they all have a lot of money, and obviously it's not the money that they're worried about, because they don't care how much money they're losing because they already have it. So I think they should be more considerate towards the players.
Okay. I think I'd put all their financials out on the table. I think that would be the start of, like, if I wanted to get it resolved, like, look, full disclosure here, you guys can see everything that's here. We pay you X number of dollars, we lose this year. If we pay you this much, then we make a profit, and then we can actually have games. I think it's something as simple as that would just make the whole thing better. I mean, I don't think the players were so unreasonable as to say, oh, well, you know, if we don't do this, then we're not going to get to play. You know, if they actually saw the numbers.
But didn't they do that once, like show them the numbers, but they were fake? They weren't the real numbers, so that's why the mistrust came from the players.
Yeah,
Well,
so they did audit, but with an audit like that, I mean, the auditor might not have had or was given all the information, or, you know, there's room for leniency there. And I think that's what the players saw and the union saw, and so they didn't trust the audit. So I agree with what Parley is saying. If they would have just laid it all out, shown the people, you know, this is what the financials are. I don't know why the NHL felt they needed to keep their financials so secretive. I thought it was kind of weird. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is the if you hire an audit to convince, the reason why they were hiring they hired the audit was because the players weren't trusting them. So they hire an audit, they pay for it, it's all done in secret, and basically they come out and like, oh, here's the report, here's our numbers. Can you see how that's kind of like the federal government, me saying the federal government's, not using my money right, and they create an audit and tell me that they're using my money right. I'm like, no, I still don't trust you. I mean, if I may not be the world's best numbers cruncher, but if I could actually follow the numbers with my own eyes and see how things work, at the end of it, I'd be like, all right, these are the numbers. All right, now we got something real to work with. But anyway, so as far as getting an actual resolution, I think it's a little tough. I think it'll be interesting here in a second when we talk about what actually happened, the rest of the story. But what gospel concepts are pertinent to this case?
Well, there's for sure no humility, so neither side can't be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question.
Some things that kind of popped into my mind is, the Lord said, agree with thine adversary quickly, lest he, make life miserable for you. I mean, that's just something to think about. Like humility is another element of it. I think these negotiations, over a salary that's already exorbitant is kind of childish. I think if the players and the business persons were making the priority of customer service, they wouldn't have closed the season down. They would have just, they would have adjusted whatever they needed to adjust together so that they were providing for everyone else the enjoyment that, can come from watching a game, as opposed to, look at me, my salary is whatever, and whatnot. I think
I agree with Suzanne. I mean, just the humility throughout the whole thing, and I felt like, kind of like you said, the players kind of had that in the beginning where they were really willing to do different things. They just wanted to play, right? The love of the sport, but that different things that the NHL did kind of riled them up more. And I think the word they used in the case was embittered them. And I mean, just those little kind of attacks, I guess you would say. I mean, obviously, never good for any relationship. And so, yeah, humility and the need to, or the want to help everyone would go a long way.
any connections to the readings.
Teamwork.
Yeah, they definitely didn't want to play as a team, did they? I mean, and by that I mean the both parties.
Yeah, over money.
Yeah.
Yep.
All about money.
Money
All
is
right.
the root of all evil.
So, who's interested to find out how this actually went down?
I am.
All right. So, it looks like the lockout lasted for 310 days. The salary cap, I think, was placed at, looks like it was 45 million, but then it was adjusted. The salary cap would be adjusted each year to guarantee players 54% of total NHL revenues. And there would also be a salary floor, so it couldn't go too low. The player contracts are also guaranteed. The player share will increase if revenues rise to specific benchmarks, while revenue sharing will split. While revenue sharing will split a pool of money from the 10 highest grossing teams among the bottom 15. There was a $39 million cap in place for the first year of the CBA. So, the 45 million that I was talking about there, that was like, it was discussed in there where they would, like, Hockey News reported that there was a deal of 45 million, and then both of them came back and said, no, there wasn't. The season was lost, etc. Anyways, they kept going back and forth, but what they came to was a cap that was tied to revenues, where there were specific benchmarks where there would be, and then there was the revenue sharing. So the interesting thing about the revenue sharing is that several of the teams actually, so the owners of the team were actually, they wanted the lockout.
Wow.
So here's the although the numbers were disputed and they were wrong. So the NHL's numbers were disputed. There was no question that several franchises were losing money. Several had declared bankruptcy. Other franchises had held fire sales of franchise players, such as the Washington Capitals. So they were basically selling off players just to get money back. Some small market teams, such as the Pittsburgh Penguins and the remaining small market Canadian teams, were actually hoping for a lockout, since those teams would make more money by losing the season. With the Edmonton Oilers even publicly announcing that they would fold outright if there wasn't a lockout. So there were, even on the player side of things, or, there was some benefit for them to have the lockout as it was. Of note, they made the CBA in 2005. Guess what happened a couple of years later when the CBA expired?
There was another lockout, wasn't there?
There was another lockout. So obviously they didn't learn their lesson. They didn't start negotiating early. They didn't, it just seems like
repetitive mistakes.
They just can't learn from their mistakes. So, but anyways, that's the resolution. They did get something that was a cap tied to revenue, which is what the union was looking for, something that was tied to the revenue. And, so they kind of they tied everything together and kind of got the ZOPAs were met. So anyways, that's all I have. Does anyone have anything else to add to the scenario here?
Nope.
All righty. Well, it's been a pleasure. I think, we'll probably be presenting next week, maybe, to each other. I don't know who the presentations are going to, but
I think we present in our own groups. It's like 5 to 7 minutes each for our accountability project, and that's what we present next week. So
in this group. So I guess we will be seeing each other next week.
Yeah.
Oh. It's okay if you guys don't look out.
Same group meeting time.
It works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Or you could just plan on 15 minutes later by the time, I show up late every time.
So is someone running the meeting, or how is that gonna work?
What was that?
Who's
someone running?
Who's going to start the video presentation?
I can start it. I don't think there's like a format besides the fact that we're presenting, so I can be the one to start it up.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you.
Thank you,
We'll,
guys.
cut it off.
See you next week.
Bye.